It's teaching these firefighters how to become aggressive, the why and how they can become aggressive. And we hear it all the time, right? Oh, you guys are just a bunch of cowboys, right? Those interior firefighters are a bunch of cowboys. Risk-averse culture. Risk-averse culture doesn't understand the why behind the how. Plain and simple.
Thoughts and opinions by Job Talks podcast members and guests are not representative of any department, organization, or city. This episode of Job Talks podcast is brought to you by Fortified Leather. Fortified Leather is a firefighter-owned and family-run business by Nathan Welch. Nathan spent some time with CAL FIRE and is now on the job in Selma, California. We've built a great relationship with Nathan and his business, and we're thrilled to have him back to sponsor another season. Fortified Leather produces high-quality, handmade leather products that are designed with firefighters in mind. From radio straps and flashlight holsters to axe belts and a whole lot more, Nathan puts out an amazing product. I can tell you I've had some Fortified Leather gear on my turnout for a while now, and I've gotten to put it to use. I absolutely stand behind the products Fortified Leather makes. So if you're in the market for some gear or want to know more, head over to fortifiedleather.com. You can also find them on social media as Fortified Leather, or you can check out our episode number 53 where we brought them in to talk Cali firefighting and leatherwork. So go give them a follow and a like, check out his shop, and let's keep supporting firefighter and family-owned businesses. Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is Will with Job Talks Podcast. In the house today, we have Tyler Prater from St. Louis, Missouri. Tyler, thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, thanks, Will. Thanks again, buddy.
Yeah, pretty excited to talk today. We're going to talk a little bit about you and a lot about search, I think, or maybe we'll talk a little bit about search and a lot about you. Never know how the day is going to go.
Yeah.
I'm excited to have you. I always like giving a little bit of background on how we connected. So Tyler and I connected through a mutual friend that I work with at the Fire Academy, and got to talking. And like any other passionate fireman, realize you have a lot of things in common and a lot of good stuff to say. So wanted to bring him on and get talking. So glad you're here, man. Do you want to quickly talk about how you got into the fire service? Give a little bit of background. So you are currently on St. Louis, but that's not how you got your start.
No, not at all. I like most of us in the modern fire service, got my start at in my local volunteer firehouse where I grew up in small town, southern Missouri, about 45 minutes south of St. Louis, a town called Festus, and fourth generation firefighter. 3 of those generations being volunteer, me being the first career.
Awesome.
So it's definitely.
Wow.
Yeah, definitely how that it's interesting how that kind of all flows out. And I tell you what, I owe everything in my fire service career today to my roots in the beginning as a volunteer. Growing up in the firehouse, started out as a junior. We pushed the rules a little bit. I think I started around 11, kind of hanging around, washing trucks, putting gear together, learning where everything was in the truck. I could pump a truck before I could drive it type of thing. That's just the small town that I grew up in.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. My dad always gives me trouble about this all the time. I've only wrecked one car in my whole life, and it was responding to a volunteer fire call. It was as embarrassing as that is. I was that
nice.
I was that go-getter volunteer growing up, and it's just carried into the career fire service for sure. And I love the fire service. I love the family. I just absolutely love where it's taken me for sure. And I think and when we get into training culture and what it takes to train and really learn and love your job, that passion, that fire was started for me in the volunteer fire service. Was yes, we're volunteers, but we can still be professional. We can still be great at our job. We can still go to all these classes that all these other big name fire departments are going to and be just as good as they are. And I've kind of taken that mindset into the career role and really pushed training. Training is very important to me. Learning and education is very important to me at this point. So from the volunteer fire service.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, from the volunteer fire service, when I was like, hey, at some point I was like, hey, I want to pursue this as a career. I kind of knew this was the path that I wanted to go career-wise. And I stumbled upon a spectacular opportunity with my high school, my local high school, a very rural area. We had a program that was called the Area Technical School, which is it allows high school seniors to attend EMT and fire academy training as a senior in high school. So I joined.
Cool.
So back up just a little bit. When I was 17 years old, I joined the Army National Guard and actually went to basic training as a split op program between my junior and senior year of high school. So I took a little break from the volunteer fire service over that summer, went to basic training, knowing that, kind of in the back of my head, yes, I'm going to get to serve, going to get to do some cool stuff in the Army National Guard, but knowing that maybe those skills could kind of help set me a little bit further than the rest later in my career as a professional firefighter. And coming back from my senior year of after basic training, it did just that. I had the mindset to stay motivated, to stay focused, and really pursue the goals that I was after for sure. And one of them being was EMT in Fire Academy. And so my senior year of high school, I think I had 2 hours on campus at the high school. The rest of them were out at the local junior college. And I was
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think my classes were jazz band and concert band. I was a band kid growing up. I still play drums fairly often. So I went to school basically to play in the high school band, and then I went to the Fire Academy.
Oh shit!
Yeah, and then after that I went to the Fire Academy, and then in the EMT program. So I was able to graduate high school at 18 years old with Fire 1 and 2, EMT, hazmat awareness operations, and technician level training, and then have Army basic training.
Wow.
So things kind of hit the ground running.
Is that something that your high school still offers?
They still offer it. I think they got away from the EMT training. I think they found that there wasn't a whole lot of maturity or maybe the curriculum was a little too intense for senior year high school students to really kind of pursue the EMT licensure. And
Sure.
Instead of spreading, so when I went through the program, first semester was Fire 1 and 2, second semester was EMT. Now they break Firefighter 1 into semester 1 and Firefighter 2 into semester 2 to kind of help bridge that gap a little bit. And they're seeing a lot better results with that program, that way. And so which made it just that much better. Already being an nationally registered EMT, when I went to my AIT training as a combat medic, I was able to skip the first 8 weeks of training at combat medic school because I was already nationally registered EMT. So I actually got to go right into the fun stuff. So it really that high school program with the volunteer with the volunteer background and with that military service has really kind of helped pave the way into the professional path that I've taken so far.
Hey guys, just here to ask you to head over to patreon.com/jobtalks. That's patreon.com/JOBTLKS and take a look at our page. We decided to start a Patreon account to help fund producing the podcast. For as little as $1 a month, you can join as one of our subscribers and help support us through the endeavor. We look forward to being around for the long haul, bringing on good guests, putting on good shows, and putting out good training. So we ask you to head over, consider joining our subscription, and help us out. Thanks so much.
And then like you said in past podcasts, Will, it's like when you get that ticket, things are a little different here in Missouri. You don't apply for like a statewide application period or whatever. It's like you apply for every department, and each department has their own different set of standards and specifications to get hired. So when I applied to St. Louis City, I had been passed over at some other local jobs because, yes, I had the certifications in the military background, but I was 18, 19 years old. I didn't have maybe the life experiences and the maturity at the time that a lot of these places were looking for. And so I tested for St. Louis City. It was obviously no experience necessary, but they do have preference towards people that have served and do serve in the military. So I was 19 years old when I got my letter to attend the academy for St. Louis City Fire Academy to be hired there. And I took the job March 7th, 2000 at St. Louis. And I was 20. I had just turned 20 when I started the academy there. And so we were pretty lucky.
Wow.
When I go back to the volunteer fire service and how that training and the passion of the volunteer fire service, how that helped me in my professional career was already. So this was kind of a pilot program. I think it was the second time this had only been done in St. Louis. At 20 years old, I was able to kind of do an accelerated academy since I was already Fire 1 and 2 EMT qualified in the state of Missouri. So instead of doing the full 16-week program where I would take Fire 1 and 2 over again, they kind of gave us about a 7-week crash course on, hey, these are our rules, regulations, and this is how St. Louis fights fire. And was it beneficial? The 7-week program, it was a crash course, to say the least. And to be 20 years old, only thing you know is being a volunteer firefighter, and then being essentially thrown to the wolves. Because not only am I couldn't even drink at my graduation party. Like, I got thrown out of the bar my graduation party.
That's wild.
Yeah, because one of my drunk classmates goes over to the bartender and he goes, "Hey, Tyler's not even 21 yet, right?" So out I went. So thrown out of my own academy graduation party, and like wanting to go. And so I love telling the story of my first.
That's great.
So my first captain had no clue how old I was. He knew I was young. He didn't know I was under 21. We had a long night of fires one day, and we had a long night. There was a 24-hour, or not 24-hour. There was a bar that opened up behind Firehouse 1 in St. Louis. It was called the Filling Station at the time. And it opened up at like 7 a.m. to catch all the industry workers. He goes, "Hey, we're going to the filling station, kid. Come join us." And I was like, I'm not 21 yet. He's like, "Yeah, whatever. Stop joking, kid. Come on. You're not getting out of this one." So, and that's when I really had to, kind of explain to him, like, no, really. I mean, I'll go. We'll see if I fit in, but I am not 21. I legally cannot partake.
Yeah.
So, and so that was
is that rare up there?
It's for St. Louis.
Is it rare to get on that early up there?
Yeah, it's more rare. It's kind of luck of the draw. So it's St. Louis area wide, especially St. Louis City. With any other big city, it takes forever to run these hiring programs. So I was the first class off of the list that tested. So we tested in 2015. The first class went through in 2016 of new hires. We were still hiring off of that list up to 2021. So you know how these big cities are.
Holy shit.
Yeah, they're going to run these lists out as far as they can to get, I assume, get most bang for their buck. But, and when you look in my case, that military preference point helped bring me up to the top to be able to get into that first class for sure. So yeah, like you said,
right.
Everything just got timed out right. I couldn't have timed this any better to be able to come in at 20 years old. I think I'm still the youngest person in age on the job. There might be one person that might be a month younger than me, or pretty close to it, around the same birthdays. But we're knocking on 8 years beginning of next month, and 8 years of service to St. Louis, and I'm still the youngest guy in age on the job. It's just like you said. It's just I just got.
Wait, what are you 20? So you're 27? Is that right?
I'm 28. Yeah, 28.
That's when I got on the job. So, and I think like up here, I would argue that that's a much more common age, is like mid 20s to get on, to late 20s even. Most up here is a little bit different. We run a civil service test for the state, like you said. It's a little bit different, and the list resets every 2 years, so you have to retest to get yourself a spot back on the list. And then a lot of cities and towns have age requirements, so you have to be under 31 when you take the test. Your military can buy you back an additional 4 years, I think, so you could test up till you're 35 if you were military. But for the most part, so we have that, like, we don't see, unless you're a smaller town or a city that doesn't use that age restriction, which is not as common, you're getting people in that mid to late 20s range, I think, pretty consistently. We just hired some, and we had some younger kids, but definitely no 19-year-olds.
And I tell you what, that was the biggest challenge for me to overcome. Wasn't what I had to learn for the job. It wasn't what it wasn't the rigors of the job that I had to learn to overcome. It was the I guess the adulting was the hardest thing for me to overcome. You're right. So, I'm just serious. I didn't have life experience when I went into the fire service. I was that kid, right, that that all these old salty captains complain about, right? Oh, that kid, he don't have any life experience. Well, that was me, and I owe all of my life experience to the fire service. I mean, that's where I gained it. That's where I got it. And to be able to hit the ground running.
So you're still not an adult, is what you're saying.
It's questionable. I got married last year. I don't know if that counts, but it's being an adult is questionable.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so it's it is what it is. But just growing up in the fire service as a whole, it prepared me for that. I understood the firehouse banter, but like I tell you what, it's like any other firehouse. You walk into a firehouse, and then like my senior man of the house was on like his 4th divorce, and he was salty as hell, and he hated life, and all this other stuff. And that's something that I wasn't really ever exposed to before. And then you're looking at some of these other guys that are when you get into that rugged firehouse, real world mindset, me just being this kid, I'm like, oh, okay, let's go. So, and obviously
there was a lot to take in.
Yeah, there was a lot of bumps along the way. And a lot of it was, maturity, trying to understand of yes, having the pride in the job and loving what you do and being good at what you do, but not maybe at some points in my career, I lacked the maturity to be able to process that appropriately and not make myself look like an asshole, so it's there was definitely a lot of
that's fair.
There was definitely a lot of growing up that had to do very quickly within the fire service, to get me to the point to where I'm at today. But I started off at Pumper One on the St. Louis City South Side. They cover like the Anheuser-Busch Brewery, Benton Park neighborhoods, the State Street area, and we had a blast. And one of the biggest shell shocks that I had going from rural small town to big city St. Louis firefighting was it's tradition as the new guy to stand the watch during the day between noon to 5. Sit and study the books, right? Study your SOGs, study the rules and regulations. And I remember this is like my first or second shift on the job there. I'm sitting there, I'm studying my books. We get punched out for our first due fire in a building. And I remember thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, this is going to be cool. It's like 1 o'clock. We just had lunch. This is going to eat up the rest of the afternoon, right? Knowing how fires in the rural firefighting world was, it's a 4 or 5 hour ordeal. We're setting up porta tanks and water shuttles, and you might get 6 guys. I'm thinking this is going to be an all day occurrence. We roll up to a 2-story brick flat roof fire burning on the 2nd floor, and we're in and out. We're back into the house, cleaned up. It's like I'm like, okay, what do I do now? So it's definitely
this is a different world.
It's a completely different world, and just the aggressiveness and the expectation of, I would say maybe sometimes the expectations are a little different. Like as a volunteer, we're glad you're here. We're glad you're here to help. But as a professional, when you get into some of these more aggressive fire departments, it's like, okay, cool, you're here, do your job, and be good at it, type of thing. So, and that was the biggest shell shock that I had within the fire service. And then, so I spent about 1.5 years at Pumper One, and I had a very unique opportunity as a very, very young firefighter I had about 1.5 years on the job. I actually got pulled back to teach a recruit class. I had 1.5 years on the job. I'm not necessarily, the jury's still out on why that happened or what the thought process is behind that. But it was beneficial to me being a young firefighter, young in age, young on the job. I was instructor qualified. I had this volunteer experience and this volunteer training kind of helped push me into set me above some differences in my peers there. But getting into the academy as a young firefighter full time. So I taught our city fire academy for 5 months full time as a young firefighter, and that was a very unique opportunity.
Wow.
And that really sparked my interest in training and education and in making us and our firefighters better as we go on in this job. So after the training academy, I transferred up to Pumper 24s on the city's north side, one of the busier fire duty companies in St. Louis, and had a blast, had an absolute blast. lots of fires, lots of shootings, lots of and what was incredible to me at the couple years I was at Pumper 24, we were averaging between 3,300 and 3,400 calls a year, and over 50% of our still area was commercial. So you're thinking, so commercial that commercial that
holy
shut
shit
the clock. So we had this big commercial area that we covered, but look at all this low income, neighborhoods that we had to cover, and we had a lot of fun doing it. Like you said, another kind of like feather in the hat, another step to grow up and grow and gain that life experiences along the way. So I was at Pumper 24 I had right at 3 years of service. Kind of, there was 2 unexpected openings that occurred in Rescue 2 on the B shift. And, they were taking, so the bid process to get on the rescue squad in St. Louis isn't very official. It's still kind of very traditional. It's kind of like, hey, call the boss. You tell the boss, hey, I'm interested in coming over, and maybe hang out with the guys, do some trade days, work on that a little bit, kind of show your face. And finally, and this is where I was able to kind of reach into my back pocket and take the training and certifications that I had obtained as a volunteer and use that to my advantage. I was able to go to the rescue squad captain and say, hey, I want to transfer you to company. Yes, I know I'm a young firefighter. I don't have a whole lot of time on the job here in St. Louis, but I'm a hazmat technician. I'm a rope rescue technician. I'm a water rescue technician. I have experience in this and this and that, because as volunteers, we were our own rescue company. And we had to have that, we had to have that well-rounded, way of doing things in the volunteer fire service. And it just it was a fit. I loved it. It was a challenge. It allowed me to put my brain to work and challenge myself every day, and to continue to challenge myself, and kind of opened up my eyes to a completely different set of fire service duties. As a pumper guy, we're taking lines off, and we're hooking ceiling, and we're doing a lot of the grunt work. And well, now as a rescue guy, I'm looking at the bigger picture of things. When we talking in, later I got some notes here when we talk about like search size ups, where to search, when to search, how to get there. There's a bigger picture of things. And then so in St. Louis, the rescue squads do roof work. They're the roof team. So getting on a lot of these roofs and doing some true truck stuff, and it kind of opened up this completely different facet and a newfound love for the fire service again, getting on this rescue squad. And I absolutely love every minute of it, and just the diversity. And, we have a giant toy box. I don't call it a toolbox. It's a toy box. You get in there, and there's, whatever you think it is on this truck, we can find it, or we can figure out how to make it, and we're going to run it. And I work with some absolutely incredible guys. We got the MacGyver. We have the, we have the guy that can make something out of anything. We got the old salty dog that, that this is the way we've always done it. And then there's me, that's kind of the new school type of way. And then we got some guys in between. And then we got some new guys that have a lot of fire duty experience, but are new to the rescue world. And some way, somehow, every time it comes together, and we're able to talk through a plan as a team and put something into play. And it's an absolutely incredible experience to be a part of that team, for sure. So that's
really awesome.
Yeah. It's like I said, it was a very unique upbringing, very non-traditional, and I didn't realize how lucky I was and how non-traditional that upbringing was in the fire service until fairly recently. So, yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome to get those opportunities. And obviously, like, it's one thing to get opportunity, but you also have to like make yourself available to take the opportunity. So having taken the courses in the past and having done the things in the past, that when that opportunity presented itself, that you can actually take advantage of it is important. Like doing that stuff now with the picture of like, oh, maybe down the road, or, whatever the case is important, because those opportunities come and you're not prepared, and then they pass you right by,
Yeah, and and the benefit to growing up as a volunteer was there was always money and time and emphasis put on training. And I think Chief Rhodes said this in one of your podcasts that just dropped. It's like, as a volunteer, these guys are training, 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 training. And then once we get into the large urban American fire service, it's budget cuts, it's budget constraints. I have to train 1,100 guys now, and 1,100 guys want to go to FDIC conference or this guy or this conference and this conference. The budget isn't necessarily there to put these go-getters through that particular type of training on the department's dime. So a lot of these guys are working extra hours or trading days on using their own time and their own money to go through and take these courses.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things you said is that when you got to the rescue, and you're on Rescue 1 now, right?
Rescue 2. No, I started off at Pumper 1, Rescue 1. They were
you're still on Rescue 2. Sorry.
Yeah. So, and kind of one of the other things
Okay.
that kind of helped spark that, interest in the rescue company. So was being stationed with the rescue company for sure. So I was assigned to Pumper 1, and talk about
Right.
another unique experience. So about 3 months into my career, the rescue squad captain on Rescue Squad 1 got injured. And it's a policy in St. Louis that your first year, the probationary member always rides with an officer. So the Pumper 1 captain slid over and rode Rescue 1, and I got to go with him a lot of times. So I spent
Oh, wow.
I spent the majority of my first year learning how to be a rescue, and I was able to kind of tap into my experience as a volunteer and some of the certifications I already had and grow upon that and kind of show these guys, hey, I'm not just some new kid. I do know a little bit type of thing. And that kind of really helped.
Right.
I already knew how the rescue squad worked. I knew where the stuff was. I knew how the teams were set up. I had a general idea from working on that, from subbing on that truck so many times as a young firefighter, that it really made that transition so much easier.
That's cool, man. One of the other things you had said was that when you did go to the rescue, you started taking in kind of this overall picture specifically about like looking for victims and search, right? So you did roof work. I know our rescue, that's one of the primary missions on fire duty is to actually perform the primary search. Obviously, you're pretty passionate about it. We'll talk a little bit. You teach some classes. You've written an article, which I think you're going to reference. We're actually going to be teaching RIT coming up this year together. But at what point did you start really getting passionate about like performing search at fires?
So it really came probably after my first year on the rescue squad, and when that light bulb finally went off of transitioning from engine work, pumper work. I'm a Midwest guy. We call them pumpers here. So sorry. We got these.
I got that. It stings the ears a little, but it's all right.
Yeah. So when we go from pumper work to rescue work, or squad work, as we call it, rescue squad work, I realized how terrible and how my search method and game was just flat out trash. It was just trash. Because as a pumper guy in an aggressive firefighting, we pride ourselves as St. Louis Fire Department, and it's written somewhere, we are an aggressive interior fire department. And we do a great job of occupying the space with hose lines and putting the fire out from the inside. That's what we're good at. We're good at putting fires out, and we're good at putting fires out quickly. What we lacked in was the secondary, the truck work. What we were lacking in was the truck work and the search. And so yes, we were occupying the space by bringing lines in and pulling some ceiling, but a part of it's both a blessing and a curse. Being a part of an aggressive firefighting department is, where are all your go-getters? They want to be in the fire room. They want to be near the fire. They want to be on the tip. They want to be pulling the ceiling. They want to be chasing the hidden fire. They want to get that smoke on their helmet. They want to feel the heat. They want to be the glory boy. They want to fight the fire. And that's great if you're a pumper guy, right? So a lot of times the search was occurring, but maybe not to the correct standard or to the correct quality that we needed to be successful within that. And there was a couple of cases where I can recall on fire scenes where we found bodies during overhaul. And they're covered in drywall, covered in plaster, just caked full of stuff. And it was just by happenstance that we found these people. And finally, it's like, okay, as a group, as a team, as we had to say, hey, look, okay, like this, we need to stop. We need to rehearse. They need to be more defined. They need to be a little bit more, specific. And like I said, so getting into the rescue squad really opened up that mindset for me of knowing and seeing, okay, hey, look, so I can take the whole pumper side of things out of it. There's 4 pumpers on the scene that can put the fire out and hook the ceiling and drag the line. It is going to be my job to go in and do the search. And I'm going to be methodical, and I'm going to be fluid, and I'm going to be thorough. And we're going to search ahead of the line. We're going to search behind the line. We're going to search above the line. We're going to search below it. Wherever that search needs to be done, we're going to be independent upon that, and we're going to be thorough within that. So, and a lot of that comes into being able to size up your building, understand what you're looking at, understand what's happening. And as much as I give these pumper guys flack on being pumper guys, there has to be a teamwork between the two, because if the pumper guys aren't putting the fire out, that's making our job that's making our job tough. Okay, on trying to get in there and search and occupy these spaces. But then again, too, you have to be able to kind of understand what's going on, because say there's a water problem, say they run out of line, or they can't make the fire, or the fire's too intense, and that engine crew starts to back out. We need to be monitoring that radio traffic and understanding what's going on with the bigger picture of the fire scene. I really think search is, as far as priority, needs to be above fire and TAC, but you can't have one without the other. If that makes sense. Really have to kind of take a look at the bigger picture of what's going on with the whole scene and judge your search tactic that way for sure. So, yeah.
Right. When you guys started reviewing and looking at your search policies and procedures, was there a lot of resistance to this is how we've always done it? Was there resistance to bringing in new methods? Was there resistance to the idea of being ahead and above the hose line and splitting teams up to get searches done under the right conditions and things like that?
Yes, and there still is. We are a very SOG based department, and that's what makes us good at putting out our everyday fires. Right? It's each crew knows what they're doing before they arrive, all the way down to the seated position, and that is the case up to where you get to the rescue squad. The rescue squad, we have a little bit more freedom within that, and in knowing that. So within our crew, we ride 6. So an officer and a firefighter are together. The driver and one backstep guy do outside vent and roof work. And if that's is not needed, then they rotate inside. Then we have 2 people that search above the floor, and then usually the captain goes in. The captain and his partner goes in through the back and searches opposite of the line. But yeah, definitely a lot of flack from the way it's always been type of people. Every department's got one. And when you rely so heavy on SOGs, you forget the bigger picture, right? Because you really forget we're not creating smart firefighters by shoving SOGs and procedures down their face. Because if they're into a situation that doesn't fall within an SOP or an SOG, a lot of times they're like, I don't know what to do, because if it doesn't follow that SOG or that SOP, they're worried about the repercussion that comes from their leadership the next day or after the fire, instead of being able to use their brain and put something in place to overcome that particular obstacle. So really how we've changed the search culture has been within the crew. Is knowing within the crew and whoever wants to listen. Does that make sense? Because if no one wants to listen, you're not going to have the buy-in.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not going to have the buy-in regardless. If you want to be a part of our team and be a part of our change, come heavy and come ready. And so there's a lot of discussion on, so like Venator search is probably the biggest obstacle that we have to overcome. Throwing ladders, and because so in St. Louis, in the late they switched to an all quint concept, meaning that every truck, with the exception of the rescue squad in St. Louis, was a quint. And at the time, the leadership at the time was faced with dealing with house closures and consolidating companies, and the way to do that was to close the old true truck and pumper companies, compress them together, and make quints. And it worked great for about 10 years. and then the second generation quints, it kind of worked for a while. And then now there's this culture like, okay, we really need to separate back, because what happened was all the truck guys were given a hose line. And every truck guy wants to be a pumper guy, right? So, and that's the problem that was occurring was, crews and senior men that were on truck companies that had all this truck work under their belt were then given a pumper with a ladder on it, essentially, and were forced to dictate their tactics upon order of arrival. So there was more of an emphasis placed on engine company operations than there was truck operations. And we're still fighting that issue to this day of ladder placement and making sure ladders are thrown and making sure ladders are put up correctly. And it aggravates me, as a rescue squad guy, so we cover the whole north half of the city. So we can have a response time of within our still area of minutes to the complete north side of town. It might be a 15, 16, 17-minute ride to get to the north side of the city, sometimes longer. So when we get to these fires, we could be quick, we can be in the middle, or we can be at the end. And a lot of it was identifying holes in our training and holes in our culture as for truck in general, of saying, hey, if my rescue squad is last due to this fire, why did I throw the first extension ladder type of thing? And starting to ask those questions and starting to put those ideas out there for sure. But really, it kind of, the way it's always been, I wish there was a way to fix it, or a way to fix that mindset, but it's just always going to be there. And kind of my recommendation to that is just power through it. Just do what you believe in and be good at it. Because when it's successful, and when it's successful multiple times, people are going to start thinking about it, type of thing. So, yeah.
And I like what you said is like, is throwing that idea out there. So like, hey, this happened. Why did this happen? Not, hey, you were wrong, but like, hey, let's think about this. Like, if I show up last due and why aren't there already ladders, and trying to, like, instead of like hammering people, is to getting people to think. And I think it's the same thing with the training. Like this isn't just like your department, my department, it's fire service. And I feel like it's a lot of career fields as a whole. We don't do a good job building critical thinkers. We don't do a good job building people that can flex when things change. And we do a good job of saying, this is how to do your job, and then people do it. But when there's a wrench thrown in that, we don't do a good job of training them how to react and think critically. And I think we do okay, especially in the fire service, because we get a lot of people who are intelligent. They're passionate about the job. They're watching podcasts and videos and reading books on their own time. So they kind of build themselves, but I don't think the foundation does a good job building that.
And I think a lot of that is a cultural change between the fire service as a whole, when some of these senior men are starting to go out. Because, so perfect example is myself. I did not have a trade when I came into the fire service. The fire service is my trade, versus a lot of our senior men, they did something else before they were firemen, right? It seems like every one of them hung drywall or framed houses, right? But it's they all had a trade before they came into the fire service, and within those trades, what do we teach? The how, right? We teach, this is how you frame out a window. This is how you shingle a roof. This is how you mud and tape drywall. And that kind of transitioned into the fire service. This is how you pull a line. This is how you cut a hole in a roof. This is how you put water on a fire. Okay, so then now me growing up as a young firefighter, I'm hungry for the why, all right? And to bring that why up and not be derogatory behind it. right? Or not being asked behind it. And that's what throws a lot of people.
No, like genuinely, I want to understand this.
Why? Yeah. Why did we make that decision? Why do we cut a hole this way? And I always like to challenge people in my classes and people that are young in the fire service to ask the questions on why. Stir up the status quo and make this place better, type of thing. It's it's why do we throw a ladder for rescue every time? Why don't I want to throw a ladder up for ventilation when I'm trying to make a rescue from it? Why do I not want to take a so one of the, and this is kind of a side note, one of my favorite things is to look at the tools that people bring to a fire scene. Next time you're at a fire scene, take a gander around and see who brings with them. And you see some of the most ridiculous things. And it's like some dude, I witnessed another firefighter bring a pry bar. I'm like, okay, I know we do a great job of saying, hey, you should bring a tool with you to this fire scene. But do you know why you shouldn't bring that tool to the fire scene? Right? And it's
no, exactly.
It's the why. Like you said, it's the bigger picture of what's going on. And I think that really kind of relays this into one of my notes here. So one of the things I talk about and so I have a program called Occupied Until Proven Vacant, kind of changing the mindset of all houses should be treated as occupied until we prove them by searching them as vacant, right? And once we get into that mindset, and it really is the bigger picture of search culture, the bigger picture of the aggressive search. So there's a group of questions that I really like to ask myself as I'm doing my own personal size up. And everyone thinks, and there's a mutual friend of ours, I don't know if I should name drop him or not, but we were talking about size ups, and he's like, size up is you show up, there's a fire, we're pulling a line off, I'll see you later type of thing. You know exactly who.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah.
Well, all right, I'm going to challenge that. Okay, the first do size up is more than just a radio call. Size up and radio call is just one part of that whole piece, right? So, you have your first do pumper size up or your first do officer size up that says, hey, and there we've all heard great ones, we've all heard terrible ones, and we've all heard ones that were over the top, right? Every department has an officer that, especially if you have departments that follow Blue Card or some of the other size up, thoughts of thinking is, okay, pumper 24 is on the scene. I got a 2-story brick, fire on the second floor. The shutters are blue. They haven't cut the grass in a week. The car's parked out front with a flat tire. They haven't did their dishes in a couple days either. I think we're going to take a line off and put this fire out. Okay, that was too much information, right? Of it, irrelevant information. But when you get an officer,
it's got to be digestible.
It's got to be digestible. When you get a size up that comes out and says, "Hey, I'm on the scene. I got a 2-story brick building with a flat roof." I always like to emphasize the flat roof, and I didn't realize how important that was until I started working on a team that did truck work. And how that changes your way of thinking, what tools you might be bringing to a flat roof versus a peaked roof. Most flat roofs are rubber. Most peaked roofs are shingle or commercial roofs and things of that, or roofs with parapets. How that changes the tools and the ideas of what you're coming up. So that size up is really more than a radio call. You're painting that picture for everyone else is following up behind you of what do we have going on, what are we doing, what do I need done now. Kind of like that CAM report, conditions, actions, needs, right? This is what I see. This is what I'm doing about it. This is what I need to follow. And I like to take that a step further when we get into the bigger picture of search culture and the bigger picture of the search size up. There's been a lot of emphasis on the search size up. And I think it's something that has always been happening, but we're just now putting a name to it. Kind of like when VES became famous. VES was like something we maybe kind of always did, but now we're putting a name to it type of thing. And with that search size up, there's some questions that I ask when I'm walking up to the scene. What's the time of day? How does that affect what I'm going on? Am I going to a school at 3:00 in the morning, or am I going to a school at 1:00 in the afternoon? Type of thing. And the type of occupancy, is it a school, is it a single family home? Could that be affected by the time of day? And where is the fire involvement? because that lets me know, okay, where's the fire at? Where is it burning? Where hasn't it burned yet? Where is that fire at in relation to my targeted search areas? If the fire's in the first floor in living room in the living room area, okay, maybe I need to know I'm going to search the bedroom above or the bedroom behind it or an additional area, catty corner to the fire and start my targeted search there. And then the next question is, how are you going to get there? What is your method to getting to the area of where you're going to search? Are we throwing an extension ladder? Are we going through the back? Are we using a side door? Or are we entering behind the line? Has the fire attack been initiated? Is a big one. Okay, if you're going to be aggressive, which I'm all for. If you're going to start searching ahead of a line, if you're going to start searching ahead of a line before the line has been deployed and in place, it only takes one kink or one mess up in that puzzle somewhere along the way. If that crew doesn't get water, if that crew makes the wrong floor, if something happens within that fire attack, you have to be ready to find your way out instantly, right? If something happens with that fire attack, what is the building construction and how does that relate to how I'm going to search it? So in St. Louis, our bread and butter fire is 2-story brick buildings with flat roofs. Some of them are 2-family, some of them are 4-family, some of them are 2 families converted into singles, some of them are somewhere in between. But just that layout of 2-story brick with a flat roof, 99% of the time, the kitchen's in the back off the back porch. 99% of the time, the second floor is your bedrooms. The first floor is your living rooms.
Right.
And that's every building that we go into. And is there fire in the void spaces? Is it running the pipe chase to the roof? How is that going to change where I'm doing my search, or is that going to affect where I'm going to search? And then what is our tick showing? So there's been a lot of emphasis here lately as ticks become more and more accessible for everybody. I never thought I'd see this, but St. Louis Fire Department is starting to issue every riding position its own tick, and that's incredible for the use of these ticks. But up until this point, St. Louis Fire Department as a culture, what do we use ticks for? Finding hot spots during overhaul, maybe finding the fire during fire attack, maybe not a whole lot of emphasis on using the tick for search practices and really understanding what that screen is telling us and what the hot and cold and what the different signs and limitations of that tick is because yes, I can scan a room, but if a piece of debris fell or if they're hiding behind a piece of furniture, the tick is not going to be able to see through that. So what is my tick showing and how to make that work?
For sure.
So
I think just to back up for 2 seconds is I think like it's important doing that search size up. And I think what you said is really important, like occupied until proven vacant. Right. And I think it's Justin McWilliams that says, I think that I first saw, he said, like, if you go to a medical call and it's a diabetic and somebody tells you that their blood sugar was XYZ, you still take your own blood sugar, right? So you still take and verify that is actually the problem or not the problem. And it should be the same. Why is it different when we start talking about fire? Because somebody comes out and says, I don't think there's anyone in there, or because you get there and you don't, the time of day doesn't line up and you think maybe nobody's in there, you still have to verify. Maybe it changes how quickly you go through the building, right? Maybe it changes the speed of your search, where you target your areas, whatever the case is. But we still have to get in there and like verify for ourselves. And the only way to do that is by occupying the interior. And I think it's a big part of it. And I think that the stuff that some of these people are doing now with these websites like Data Not Drama and the Rescue Survey, Firefighter Rescue Survey, is allowing us to have a little bit of teeth behind what we're saying and say, hey, listen, no, we have data that now shows like we're not killing people by putting them in to search a building. We are finding people that are in these buildings, and when we remove them within 6 minutes, they're having positive outcomes, things like that. And I think I think this trend towards recording the data and having the data on our side is good.
And you're exactly right. It's the question that I always like to think, and part of that's that old world thinking of okay, as a firefighter, what am I wearing? I got my structural PPE on, my hood, my gloves, my helmet, my SCBA. I'm not fireproof, but I am a lot more fire resistant than the 60-year-old lady that's trapped in a room with hot fire gases flowing across her building to get to her window. And the whole mindset.
And there's no one else that's capable of doing it.
Exactly.
There's not a backup. There's not a backup thing.
Yeah.
Right.
There's what are we going to do? Put the fire out and hope that they don't die from the smoke inhalation? No, but it brings the mindset back to, the whole age old question of, I don't want to push fire. I don't want to push the steam. I don't want to, steam a room. My interpretation of some of these the data points and stuff like that is okay. Will, would you prefer to be burned at 1200 degrees, or would you prefer to be burned at 200 degrees? What's a survivable injury, right? And if I can cool that, if the bumper companies can cool that environment off, and so I can get in there and search it, because if you search a room that's 1200 degrees, you're burning up too, right? You're burning gear up, you're burning yourself up, you're burning your ears, you're burning your shoulders, you're taking a beating. And then what you got to think, if you're taking a beating with your equipment on, what does that victim have? What kind of environment is that victim in? So if we can cool that environment, put some water in there. If you see fire, put water on it. It's like that. There's a comedian, and I can't forget it. I forget his name every time, but he does a skit, and he's like, I want to drive the fire truck SUV. They have the easiest job. Hey, you see that fire over there? Put some water on it. And it's so simple, but it makes so much sense, right? Hey, there's some fire over there. Put some water on it, right? Whether if you occupy it if you put the fire from the inside out, if you're out in the volunteer in the rural area, sometimes fire involvement hinders these volunteer companies from creating interior fire attack. So you got to do something transitional, knock your exterior fire down enough to a point where you can occupy the space, right? You're only making the conditions better as you go. And so going back on the whole occupying the space thing of treating buildings occupied until we prove them vacant, one of the biggest light bulb moments, or an even bigger light bulb moment that I've had here recently, is I was doing a training for a neighboring department to us, and we had an acquired structure that was hoarding conditions, and there was just junk everywhere. We filled it up with some fake smoke. We sent guys in there to search it. So I took one of my helpers, I hid him in there a couple times. And as the crews kind of made it like a real world scenario, they sized it up, they came off the truck, they took their tools, they went in and they started searching this building. I acted as a bystander and I said, hey, somebody's in there. Oh, nobody's in there. Okay. Well, the third time around, I took the victim out of the building and told him to go sit in my car. And as that crew came up, I said, hey, there's somebody in there. I know there's somebody in there. So to kind of back up, the first couple drills took about 6 minutes to search this whole building. Sometimes the crews found the victim. Sometimes the crews didn't find the victim. But when I went up there and I told the officer, the first two officers during this drill, I said, hey, there is somebody in this building. And he said, okay. They spent 38 minutes and did one bottle change, searching this building up and down, left and right, because I told them there was somebody in there. But there wasn't anybody in there, right? So what does that mean to us?
Right.
Is that search, that thorough of a search, that 38-minute search should be happening every time, right? We should be coming off the truck, we should be going into these fires with the mindset of this building is occupied. I need to do everything in my power to search it, right? And once you do your primary, have a secondary crew come in and do the secondary. Hell, after the fire's out, come in and do a tertiary search if you want, right? And kind of
I think that's really important. I think that's really important is that we need to do that thorough of a search, but you're not necessarily taking 38 minutes to get your primary done, right? Your primary is down and dirty as quick as you can get it, looking for the highest likelihood of life, getting through the building with speed, trying to get any victims you can find out within that first 6 to 10 minutes. Then secondary search, a little more fires knocked down, conditions are better, a little more in detail. And then again, a tertiary search, because what happens in every fire, ceilings come down, walls come down, things come down, you have debris and stuff that cover people up. So it's not, I just want to, like, it's not necessarily taking 38 minutes to do a primary search on a 2-story building, but it is taking that time over a few different searches to make sure that building has been thoroughly searched.
You're exactly right. And then so the question I always get asked, and I've experienced this, I'm sure you've experienced this, Will. There's going to be fires that we just can't search. There's going to be those fires that are rolling both floors through the roof, completely evolved upon arrival, that we're not going to be able to occupy. That my gear will not protect me if I put myself in that environment, type of thing. And it's like, okay, what do we do then? Well, you still got to put the fire out, and you almost got to kind of think of the real world here. Okay, that's an unsurvivable environment. That person is not going to be able to survive that fully involved environment. We have to be smart about it. But there's a lot of bad press out right now of fire departments that showed up to fully involved building fires with reports of people in there. They surround and drown it, and then they leave. And then the next day, the family goes into this rubble or into these buildings and finds the body. How embarrassing is that to your fire department? What kind of PR nightmare is that?
Right.
So it, even if we change to kind of shift gears here and go from that building could still be occupied, even though that was a surround and drown environment to where that was a defensive fire, I still need to prove that there's not somebody there, right? And in St. Louis Fire Department, we've ran into this case before. So we have a very, very heavy vagrant population or homeless population, and so we always get the question of why are you guys so aggressive on vacant buildings? Well, I think we're still at about 40% to 50% of the buildings in St. Louis are vacant when it comes to residential homes, and there's an even more vastly larger amount of the vacant commercial properties, especially when you get into the downtown neighborhood. There's 50 and 60 story high rises in downtown that are completely vacant, top to bottom, boarded up, right? So we can't not search these vacant properties because we consistently pull victims and rescue victims from vacant properties, right? How did this vacant property start? How did this fire start? A lot of times it's just people, building fires in the fireplace, or cooking, or a warming fire got away from them in these vacant fires, and now the vacant fires these vacant homes are on fire. There is a stat, and I'm got to recall, so it's going to be ballpark numbers. I believe it was 2018. St. Louis Fire Department made 12 rescues out of building fires. Out of those 12, 9 of them, it was like 2/3, there's a little over 2/3 of them were from buildings that were called vacant upon arrival. Vacant, and so that brings up another point, is the terminology of vacant versus occupied, right? And so vacant to us, to my terminology in the St. Louis Fire Department, means that it's not regularly inhabited, it's probably abandoned, right? Vacant's got nothing to do if there's people in it or not. Vacant is essentially a board up to us.
Right.
If I roll up to a fire and I say a 2-story brick vacant, it means it's boarded up, there's no utilities, and somebody's probably not taking care of that property, right? Doesn't mean that nobody's in it or nobody's living there, right? And then occupied, for us, an occupied building is a building that's regular inhabited, that has utilities, somebody's taking care of that property, right? And getting into that mindset of understanding what everyone's terminology is, especially if you rely on mutual aid, right? Because you might go into a fire with a neighboring agency that says, okay, this is vacant, and they're saying it's vacant because they already searched it, right? So, and then again, like Will, you brought up a point. You said, hey, am I still going to get my own blood sugar, right? I was just in the hospital a couple of weeks ago from an on-duty injury, and the medic in the back of the ambulance started an IV on me. Okay, once I got to the hospital, the nurse ripped out the IV. The medic did just literally 10 minutes ago and put another one in the same spot. You know why? Because I didn't trust his, right? So why are we not taking that mindset?
Right.
So in the fire service, we're trending to this whole EMS first expletive, right? EMS first this, EMS first that. Okay, what about getting back to our roots as a fire department or fire district and putting out fires, occupying the spaces, and searching the fires and putting them out? How about that, right? If we're so worried about starting two IDs and following EMS protocols, right? why aren't we so worried about doing primary and secondary searches and following our search and fire rescue protocols, right? Yep. Take your smoothbore nozzle, go inside that building,
Right.
put that fire out, right? Send a search crew in behind it or above it or below it and search that building too, okay? But don't forget to upload your EKG strip to the report, right? It's like, where is our standards at? Where is our standards? Where are they, right? Are we a fire department?
Right. And I think a lot of that goes to, right, I think a lot of that goes to, especially up here, is fire departments increasingly running their own EMS services, and we're bombarded by EMS, and we don't see, especially in the smaller departments, you don't see the fires. And then I think what happens is that you don't know what you don't know, right? So you have places and departments that are doing EMS all the time, and they're not doing fires. So what becomes the forefront of their mind? Well, I need to be good at this thing I do all the time. Well, yeah, you do need to be good at that, right? Because that's part of your job. But you also need to be good at the thing you don't do all the time. And it's probably more important to make sure that you're training, because you're not getting real world experience every single day doing.
And you still can be good at those things is what a lot of people don't understand. I hear it all the time.
Right.
Oh, you work for St. Louis. You guys fight lots of fires. Yes, I do. We do fight a lot of fires, but that doesn't mean that your department that goes to one fire a year can't be as good as mine, right? Because if you have, and that brings up the whole training point, this whole training thing of how do we make training realistic, and like we've discussed earlier, it's thinking of the bigger picture. I love scenario-based training. Yes, you can train on the basics and the snidbits and the little bit of hows, but there needs to be one cumulative drill of the why. Of why are we doing it this way? Why do things have to go together this way? Why? Why is this operation the way that it is? And when we can operate on the why, it just makes the hows that much better, right? Really, it really emphasizes. You know, when you get onto one of the biggest pet peeves I have is academy search culture, right? When you get into fire academies, how did you learn how to search, Will? I tell you how I learned how to search. You get down on all fours, on your knees, grab your partner's boot, and you crawl aimlessly through the fire tower and hoping you find your victim, right? Is that realistic?
You don't separate.
And you don't separate, right? I tell you what, I search without my partner quite frequently, okay? You know, and he's within contact of me. He might be on the other side of the room or across the hall. We're still a team. We're still working together. But never have I ever had my hand so far up my partner's ass to where if he had lunch the next day, I could tell you, or lunch the day, I could tell you what he had. Right? No, we're so we're gonna separate here. We're gonna cover more ground. And what else did you learn in the academy? Take your tool with you, right? We're so good at, hey, bring this tool with you. Bring a tool, hammer it down. We're bringing this tool with me. This tool is my lifeline. Well, I'll tell you what, does that tool have feelings? Nope. If you bang that 6-foot metal pole off of a kid's forehead or off of a bedpost, are you going to be able to tell the difference? Right? And then
I think that's a huge training scar is we teach people to search with tools, and I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with that, but we teach them to search with tools in empty rooms where the only thing there is a victim. So what happens is when you get into a building where not the only thing in the room is the victim, and it's the feet of the couch or the couch cushions or the coffee table or the bed or the closet or whatever, now they don't have any perception of what the difference is.
Exactly.
And that, I think, is where that training scar really plays a difference.
And you know, in getting into teaching firefighters how to build their mental map, their exterior size up, get a rough layout of what you think of what this building is before you get inside of it, right? How many people do you know that just like, so this is an experience that I had. We had these new fancy ticks, and I was glued to the tick. I went into a blacked out environment. I'm looking through my tick. Well, in one of the settings, and I don't know how I did it, I dropped the battery out of the bottom of it. And when I was trying to find the battery, I kicked it, and the battery was lost forever. Now my tick is dead. I have zero mental map built in my mind of how I got into this building.
Right.
because I was glued to this tick. So, but if we can build
Right.
those mental maps of, hey, okay, I came in from the right side, almost like a right-hand search type of thing. Okay, here's the couch. Here's the kitchen. Okay, here's a stove. I know where I'm at now. And I'm going to go into the next room. Okay, cool. Here's
Right.
a bedroom. And then when we're on our way out, reverse that mental map that we made and work our way out. And part of it is the way it's always been, right? Well, that's the way it's always been. We're talking about training scars. One of the
Right.
things that I always
And I
love.
think
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I think conditions dictate, right? So like when you have conditions that you can spread out and stay within communication and be in completely different bedrooms, that's fine. If you're getting in and it's getting hot and it's getting gnarly, then maybe you tighten back up a little bit. You stay together, you get that mental map. One of the things like I've said to people when teaching or doing search is like, if I ask you right now to tell me the layout of your neighbor's house that you maybe even never have been in, or if I asked you to tell me the layout of an apartment, your aunt, your uncle, your friends' houses, you could tell me generally how a house is laid out.
Yeah,
As soon as it becomes part of the fire, now we're just like, I can't, where would the kitchen be? Where would a bedroom be? What, like, I'm going to search this bedroom and there's a door. Well, hurry and get over here because it might lead to a whole nother wing of the house. No, it's probably going to lead to a closet. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
once you're in those environments, people just forget that they live in these buildings every single day. And that's not to say that there aren't one-offs and like different things, but like we can build these maps and we can know that like, okay, I might not be on a wall, but I'm in your standard single or two family house. I'm probably not more than 8 feet from a wall anywhere, ever.
exactly.
You
A
know what I
wall
mean?
or a window.
So if I start getting disoriented, right, if I start getting disoriented, then I turn and try to go the other way, and I'm probably going to hit something relatively quick and be able to get my bearings back.
I'd be lying if I said I haven't stuck my head out a window and looked for the blinky lights, right? You know, you stick your head out the window, look for the blinky lights, get yourself reorientated, and then go back to work, type of thing, right? And to kind of go back on
Right.
training scars, one of the best examples of a training scar that I think is very relatable on how training scars can become fatal is a story. It's a story I was actually told in the military during a pistol course. And there was a group of law enforcement officers. I couldn't begin to tell you where they were. Back in the old 38 special days, they'd draw their weapon at the range. They would fire, and then they would empty their shell casings into their hand and then dump them into their pocket so they didn't have to pick the shell casings up down off of the ground afterwards. Right, and that was how this is how these officers did their pistol qualification. They'd fire off their rounds, dump the empty casings into their pocket, and keep going on until a coroner brought this up. A coroner went to the sheriff and said, "Hey, the last 3 officers you have brought to me that have died from a shootout with an assailant has had empty shell casings in his pocket." What does that tell us, right? It's almost kind of like when you go back to the whole World War II thing of the one general that said, okay, we need to look at the planes that come back without the bullet holes in the engine, right? Because they're getting shot up somewhere that is creating that plane to crash, right? So we need to kind of take that mindset into the fire service as a whole, as a search, right? It's kind of like the whole death on the nozzle, like Kurt Isaac's death on the nozzle. How many firefighters have we pulled out with a nozzle that was been shut, right? How many dead firefighters have we found that were not flowing water, that were burned up? They had the tool in their hand to cool that environment, right? So it's that whole mindset of how training scars can become fatal. So we have to be able to identify them. We have to be able to look at the bigger picture of everything that's going on, identify those training scars, come up with a plan, and mitigate that for sure. So
and use the data to help us. Again, like how many, just a real quick, and we're just a little over our hour now, so we'll start wrapping up. But just a quick, like looking back at like deaths with the data, not drama. So 85 on-duty deaths for 29 of those were advancing hose lines, and one was ventilating, and 0 of those were doing search and rescue. So 10 deaths that are happening inside the structure, and the other 75 are happening from car crashes and heart attacks and who knows what else. And listen, one dead firefighter is one too many. Like, right? Obviously, but we need to have the data on our side that says like, hey, we can do this stuff. Like we're not killing people by putting them into a building to perform a search.
You're exactly right. It's teaching these firefighters how to become aggressive, the why and how they can become aggressive. And we hear it all the time, right? Oh, you guys are just a bunch of cowboys, right? Those interior firefighters are a bunch of cowboys. Risk-averse culture. Risk-averse culture doesn't understand the why behind the how. Plain and simple, right? There's plenty of fire departments out there, but I tell you what, to be on the devil's advocate there's plenty of other firefighters and fire departments that just get lucky every time, right? So we have to ride that fine line of being smart, being proficient, and being good at what we do, and being aggressive about it for sure. But man, you got my blood pressure spiked. Yeah. I am.
It's a topic that invokes passion.
Yeah, it does,
and it invokes passion on both sides. And I think it's important to have the conversations and talk about the hows and the whys, specifically the whys, and like use the data to have the conversation, because I think it's a conversation worth having, because it's not for me, right? It's for the people that expect me to be in their home when it's on fire.
Yeah. So before we go, Will, let's give a little shout out about the class we're doing.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so Will and I, we are kind of a pet peeve project of ours is firefighter survival Mayday class. Will and I will actually be out at South Haven. No, not South Haven. It's South Windsor. That's it. South Windsor. Yep, South Windsor Rescue Weekend. I'm sorry, I am not an East Coaster. I'm going to be calling Will and Justin and trying to figure out where the hell all this stuff is. So that's all. Once you get like east of Indianapolis, that's all Boston, right? There's just all Boston up there, right? So,
perfect.
So we're going to be at South Windsor Rescue Weekend teaching firefighter safety and survival type stuff. Talking about a lot of the search culture, a lot of the whys behind the house, all hands on. Ass kicking training. It's going to be fun. I've lost sleep over this, staying up late trying to plan and make sure that this is as great as we want it to be for sure. And then we're going to be doing a repeat. We're going to be doing a repeat delivery at Metro Atlanta Firefighters Conference. I believe that's in June. And we're going to be submitting that class
mid-May.
May, maybe something like that. I don't have my calendar in front of me. If you're anything like me, I live off my Google Calendar. But and we're hoping to really kind of start branching that out and kind of take the passion that we have for search, Mayday, firefighter survival, and really kind of come around and teach our ideas on why we think the whys are important type of thing for sure. So keep an eye out for some of these classes we got coming up for sure. But yeah, thanks again, Will, for having me.
Yeah, man, and I appreciate it. I kind of came into doing these classes with you and Justin a little later, so I appreciate the invite, and I'm really excited. Like you said, I think it's going to be good to teach people how to do the skills, but also more importantly, how to think critically about why we're doing those skills, so that if they ever have to do them, they can use the pieces they need to get the job done. So, yeah, man, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I have a feeling, as I say with most people, this won't be the last time we do this.
Anytime, man. And like I was saying, we might have to do like a Job Talks After Dark or something, and have a couple adult beverages on hand, because I am legal. I am old enough to drink those now, and we'll really
barely, but you're there, buddy.
Yeah, barely, but I'm here, right? Yeah, we'll really spark some conversation, right?
Yeah, I think that'd be good. I think that'd be awesome, man. So on that note, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks again for tuning in for this episode. Obviously, Tyler is passionate about training, about searching, as I am too. And keep an eye out. If you haven't already looked at registration for Metro Atlanta Firefighters Conference, take a look. The class sold out for Rescue Weekend in just a couple hours. So maybe
South Windsor is sold out. So keep an eye out for Metro Atlanta.
Yeah, South Windsor sold out in a couple hours, but we have Metro Atlanta coming up, and then we're submitting the application to a couple other conferences. So keep your eyes out, and we will catch you on the next one.